Why Iran's leaders face a dangerous moment. Iran's leadership is under intense pressure like never before, following a brutal crackdown on nationwide protests that erupted in late December 2025, widespread public anger, a collapsing economy, and direct threats from US President Donald Trump of military intervention have left the Islamic Republic with very few paths to survival. The regime, which has endured sanctions, regional conflicts and past uprisings, now stands at one of its most vulnerable points since 1979. In this in-depth analysis, we examine the internal crisis, external threats, limited options available to Tehran, and what the future may hold. The protests began in late December 2025, triggered by a dramatic collapse of the Iranian rial against the US dollar, skyrocketing inflation, food shortages, and deep economic despair after years of sanctions and mismanagement. What started as economic grievances quickly escalated into nationwide anti-regime demonstrations across all provinces, including chants of death to the dictator, demands for regime change, and rejection of the regime's foreign adventures. The government's response was swift, violent, and unprecedented in scale. Security forces, including the IRGC, unleashed a bloody crackdown, resulting in thousands of deaths. Estimates from activists and medics range from 5,000 to over 12,000 in the initial weeks alone. Tens of thousands were arrested, internet blackouts were imposed nationwide, and reports emerged of mass executions, torture, and plans for public hangings of protesters. This repression, far from quelling the unrest, deepened public hopelessness and anger. Many Iranians now feel they have nothing left to lose. The regime's once effective tactics of fear and suppression are backfiring, turning sporadic protests into a sustained challenge to the system's legitimacy. Even some reformist voices within the establishment have been silenced or arrested for mild criticism, signaling paranoia at the top. As of February 2026, while the streets have quieted somewhat due to heavy securitization, underground resentment simmers. University students continue small demonstrations, workers strike over poor conditions, and the regime closes businesses that supported the protests. The economic pain persists. Internet restrictions cost millions daily, and sanctions tighten further. Externally, the situation is equally precarious. President Donald Trump, back in office, has repeatedly threatened military action. He warned that any large-scale executions or continued crackdown would trigger very strong action, including strikes on security forces, nuclear sites, or even broader attacks aimed at regime change. Trump has described regime change as potentially the best thing that could happen for Iran and the region. The US has repositioned significant military assets, aircraft carriers like the USS Abraham Lincoln, warships in the Persian Gulf, and increased regional presence. Combined with Israel's ongoing pressure after direct confrontations in 2025 and alignment with Netanyahu on maximum pressure tactics, Iran faces a credible two-front threat: internal revolt and potential US-Israeli strikes. Trump's administration has imposed new tariffs on countries trading with Iran, especially targeting China's oil purchases, further strangling the economy. While Trump has hinted at possible negotiations, perhaps on nuclear and missile issues, he has also said time is running out and all options remain on the table. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei has responded with warnings of regional war if attacked. But the regime appears cornered diplomatically. Global rallies, including massive demonstrations in Europe and the US, calling for regime change and support for figures like Reza Pahlavi, add to the international isolation. The regime's few remaining allies are weakened, leaving Tehran with diminished regional support. What real options does the leadership have left? Concessions on core issues like the nuclear program, ballistic missiles, or support for proxies seem unlikely. These are viewed as essential for deterrence and survival. Economic reforms are attempted but undermined by corruption, sanctions, and structural failures. Negotiations with the West? Possible indirectly through intermediaries. But Trump's hardline stance, demands beyond nuclear issues, and Netanyahu's influence make meaningful deals difficult. The regime may seek to buy time, hoping protests fade, economic measures provide relief, or external threats prove to be bluffs. Continued repression remains the default, but it risks sparking renewed nationwide unrest or giving pretext for foreign intervention. Analysts warn that 2026 could be the most dangerous year for the Islamic Republic since the 1979 revolution. A perfect storm of internal despair, economic collapse, and external military pressure. If protests reignite or Trump acts decisively, the regime could fracture. Alternatively, if it survives this wave through sheer force, it may emerge even more isolated and brittle. Iran stands at a historic crossroads. Leaders who once projected unshakable power now appear vulnerable and cornered. The coming months will determine whether this moment leads to gradual reform, sudden collapse, another cycle of brutal survival, or external-driven change. One thing is certain, the dangerous moment has arrived, and the world watches closely. Thank you for watching this analysis. If you found it insightful, like, share, and subscribe for more updates on global affairs. Stay informed. History is unfolding.